What's up, sexy citizens? And welcome back to the Leo Dotson Show. Hey, today I want to talk to you about the biggest thing I know. Nah, it's the national debt. And as my friend, fellow New Yorker, gubernatorial candidate, and future presidential candidate Jimmy McMillan says, these are variations of his words, but it's true, the debt is too damn high. Well, we all know this, so what are we going to do about it? Well, it depends on whom you ask. Some people would suggest that what we need to do is leave taxes alone. That we don't need to raise rates, we don't need any more revenue, we just need to slash spending, cut the budget. Well, in a debt situation like this, it really is hard to argue with cutting spending. We probably do need that. Other proponents would say that no, what we need to do is leave spending exactly where it is. We can't cut people off in an economic downtrend like this. What we need to do is increase tax rates, make the wealthy spend more money. Well, more revenues definitely would help. And still other people would say we don't need to do either one of those initiatives. What we really need to do is simply grow our way out of this. And while I do very much encourage job growth, to think that we're going to exclusively use growth to get out of this mess, I gotta ask you, dude, have you seen the damn debt? Growing our way out of this, if that's all you think we need to do, I think you're growing something else and smoking it, if you know what I mean. Growing our way out of this exclusively would be like a jockey I talked to not too long ago who said he wanted to grow himself into being a center in the NBA. Now, of course, I'm teasing, but you get the idea. It's crazy. Now, what do I think? Well, the question really remains is this. Should we increase revenues? Should we decrease spendings? And should we increase job growth? It would be the same thing if somebody asked me, hey Leo, do you want a beer, a glass of wine, or a shot? My answer is yes. Yes, I do. Because I really believe we need a three-pronged approach. We need to do all three, and we need to work together to do it. First of all, let's look at the tax issues. I don't necessarily know that we actually have to raise tax rates. What I would suggest is tax reform. Let me tell you what I mean by that. If you look at the highest rates are 35% right now for the wealthiest Americans. The average middle class person is going to pay somewhere between 22 to 28% on taxes. And they're going to pay pretty much that. Now, maybe taken out of their check, but they will spend that amount of money. The problem comes not with the stated rate of 33 or 35%. The problem is wealthy millionaires and billionaires have lots of money to hire not only CPAs, but tax attorneys. And many times these tax attorneys not only thoroughly know the tax law, many of them collaborated with and helped to write the tax law. Meaning they know all of the loopholes that are there available that most Americans, middle class people like you and me, may not have access to or may not be aware of. So they have all these loopholes, and by the time they pay their taxes, after all of these deductions and loopholes, their actual net amount that they pay, what they literally write a check to the government for, is not 33%, not 35%, not 36%, it's closer to 20%, sometimes 10%. I've seen even less than that. In fact, I know a person who went from making about $100,000 a year, where he was in a 28% tax bracket, a few years later was making millions. And although his tax bracket had increased, he was literally paying less as a percentage of his income when he was making millions than when he was making $100,000. And that's the problem. Wealthy people, it's not about the tax rates, it's about the deductions and the loopholes that they get that no one else gets. So if we could simply have tax reform, close the tax loopholes, and especially eliminate corporate welfare. What I'm talking about are major corporations who are making billions and billions of dollars. We as taxpayers through our government are still giving them more money back. For example, the oil companies. The oil companies, and you probably know this every time you pull up to the pump, have made trillions of dollars, and not just revenues, in profits in the last few years. Yet, we as taxpayers, through our government, give them billions of dollars of tax incentives and rebates that they don't need. That money could be better spent to pay down the debt, or be reinvested in small businesses that you and I might have, which would help stimulate the economy. So we don't necessarily have to raise tax rates, but we definitely need tax reform to bring in more revenues and have a more fair system. Secondly, we could combine this with spending cuts. So let's look at what we might want to cut. Well, everyone talks about personal welfare, and there is abuse there, and we do need to reform that. And that would be good if we simply would implement the laws that are in place. However, if we wiped out all of personal welfare, it's not big enough to make a huge dent in the debt. So although we can do that, what else should we do? Well, we need to look at the largest areas of spending to see where we might get some relief. First of all, the largest area of spending is defense. Now, it's very cleverly broken down into multiple categories, so not any one of them is that large. The largest area that's actually labeled defense spending is around 34% of our budget. But that's the general defense budget. That doesn't include all these wars that we've been fighting for 10 years. Those are extraneous items that are not in the general budget, yet they certainly add to the defense cost. And although it may or may not have been justified to have gone to the Middle East 10 years ago, it is very difficult to justify never-ending wars. And these are costing us not only lives of our brave men and women, but billions and billions of dollars per month that could go down to fight the deficit, be put into infrastructure, or be reinvested into our economy. Also, think about all the terrorist initiatives, policies, and programs that are in place to keep us safe. Homeland Security, which most people don't think is that effective, at least the way it's structured now, plus all of the money the federal government pays to state and local governments for defense initiatives or security initiatives as well. Aren't all of these things, if we put them into one bucket, they're all related to defense. And if we put them all together, that's about half our budget. We could end the wars, we could have a much more fair system of eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, and a more fair bidding system among defense contractors, which would reduce the amount of money we're spending on defense without lowering the level of services, the amount of money that we're paying to our brave troops. We could even increase their pay and benefits, which is something we should do. And we could keep our defense capabilities exactly where they are without having any increase, in fact, reducing the cost that is costing us right now for our defense. That would be huge. And that elimination of waste, fraud, and abuse could be implemented and extended to every program we have. Now let's look at entitlements. I'm talking about real entitlements. These are people like our parents and our grandparents who've worked their butts off their whole life, paid into the system, and have been told their whole life that when they retire, they will have Social Security, Medicare, etc. Here's my approach to the problem. I think, first of all, for those people in their late 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, who are already in the system or just about to enter the system, and have paid into Social Security and other programs their entire life, none of those funds should be cut even 1 penny. Nor should the payments to those people be delayed even 1 day. So for the people who are about to use the system, who've paid into it for their lifetime, or already retired, nothing should be changed. Now, if we go back a generation, to me, I'm in my 40s, I think most of us, first of all, if we watched what's been happening to Social Security, none of us are counting on it. And secondly, we still have 15, 20, 25 years before retirement. So we could actually plan for and adopt a small reduction. Let's say, for example, that we have a reduction in our benefits when we reach retirement age, just say for debate purposes right now, maybe around 10%. 10% is not going to be a huge detriment to most of us as individuals, but collectively, millions of people, and maybe even also delaying the age a couple of years in which we could actually receive those, that would have a tremendous impact on lowering the debt. And that type of initiative can be applied to many programs. And for those young people, maybe in high school, who've never paid even yet a penny into Social Security, we could greatly reduce what they're going to get at retirement. Now they have a whole lifetime to plan for that reduction. And then we could sustain perpetually a program for retirement and all the other programs associated with those programs that we could maintain without destroying our debt. Now, lastly, I definitely believe in jobs growth program. I don't think we can use that exclusively, but it's a great augment or addition to revenue or tax reform, revenue reform, and spending cuts intelligently. Now, what can we do? Well, think back to the 30s and 40s, the Workers' Progress Authority. That was a program to put people back to work. Things like the Hoover Dam and our first national highways were begun under this program. Those are some of the best construction that we've seen, and that program literally helped bring us out of the Great Depression, which was a worse economic environment than even what we face today. Now, what can we do? How about, look at our infrastructure. It's ridiculous. We've got to spend money. If you've driven down the road lately and not lost your car in a pothole, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, we're a first world country with third world roads. We build roads all around the world for other countries, yet we have an abysmal infrastructure system here in the U.S. So we could put real people, real jobs, a good day's wage for a good day's work in construction, in technology, manufacturing, infrastructure, etc. These are real jobs, and we could take people that are unemployed or underemployed and put them on the payrolls, which are going to increase the tax base and our revenue even more without raising rates at all. And it's going to help people stimulate the economy, and all around we kill several birds with one stone. Although I'm really not trying to kill any birds, you get the message. We have, without raising tax rates, we have tax reform that brings more money into the system. We make intelligent, fair cuts without disturbing people who paid into it for a lifetime in terms of reducing our debt and our spending. And we create intelligent job growth programs that will add more to the tax base and stimulate the economy. That's a three-pronged approach. That's the smart way to do it. Now, what do we have to do? Well, the first thing we have to do is make sure that all of our legislators stop acting like kindergarten kids. Wah, it's recess. It's time for a nap. Did you bring your mat? That's the way we feel when we talk to these people. They never want to compromise. We have to make them compromise because, after all, they work for us, not the other way around. So let's look at this program. Let's talk. Let's email. Let's start initiatives to make our legislators work together, put into this three-pronged approach, because the reality is this debt, it is too damn high.